Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement with Chris Mcintire. McIntyre Retirement Services, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your Game Plan for Retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for that common sense approach to planning that we all need. Chris Mcintire, president and founder of McIntyre Retirement Services, helping us have some financial confidence, taking control over our money and assets. Chris, we always appreciate you being a resource here for us and for all the savers and investors across Northwestern Ohio.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I hope everybody gets some good information out of the show here today. I think we got a good one on tap for him, Peter.
Well, absolutely. I always agree, Chris. And we're going to talk about a few topics that we cover from time to time, sort of repeat themes, but I don't think we've ever talked to each one of them specifically and collectively as we are going to today. But debt, credit, budgeting, income. Chris, when I talked at the very beginning about having confidence with our money and taking control, these are really the elements. And it's kind of a two-sided equation. Some people feel like they have great control over their money. Others at times may feel like they are very much controlled by it. And I think these topics are the ones that make the difference.
Peter, that's a great analogy that you make there is, it's like your time. You can either be managed by time or you can manage your own time, and, time waits for no one. Money's the same way. Some folks, all they want to do is worry about it, never spend any of it. Other folks are, a little more freewheeling with their dollars and are going to live large while they're healthy. That certainly makes a lot of sense to me here, but there's a lot of emotion that comes with money, more so than even health in a lot of cases, to be honest with you, because emotion doesn't get involved in health until there's an issue where the emotions around money are always constant.
Yeah, even if you've got a pile of it, you are worried about protecting it. And often the difference in that confidence, Chris, it lies whether we're having to stretch every dollar and pinch every penny, or whether we've got a sufficient income to cover expenses. But to your point, not even that makes us fully confident. Whether we're struggling with debt or building wealth, whether we're being intentional and working a plan, or perhaps being frivolous and operating without a plan, sort of winging it, as you said. So over the course of this program, we're going to talk about the difference and discuss many of the elements building to this financial confidence as it pertains to debt, credit, income, and creating that spending plan. So ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. As always, lots of important information coming your way. And Chris Mcintire, your resource, Northwestern Ohio, does make an offer as an extension of this conversation and of all of the programs of helping you craft that plan so that you can have greater financial confidence and that you can have that quality of life that confidence brings. Give a call, 800-868-1194, if you would like to get your game plan for retirement put together. Simple, easy to understand language, simple to follow instructions, steps on how to make your goals, your reality into the future. Chris will put that together with you, for you, no cost, no obligation, free of charge. There's truly no downside to placing this call or clicking that link around the video right now to get started. 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, when you boil it all down, really our very beginning, the foundation for our financial confidence, and then all further financial progress really revolves around having a paycheck.
Absolutely. We've all lived our entire adult lives by having income come in. Most of us, obviously we probably have some stay-at-home housing engineers there, if you will. But most of us, have always just had that reliability of, a monthly check comes in. So we automatically incorporated a spending plan around that. Peter and I are self-employed. It's a little bit different. We don't get that monthly check. We have to save our dollars for taxes. We have to certainly maintain a more disciplined budget, or discipline our wives. I'll say that anyway on the show.
I tell my brother and my family that, okay, you guys get to show up to work and get paid. I have to show up to work and figure out how to get paid. There is a difference there.
It's a huge difference. If everybody in this country was self-employed for 6 months, you would see productivity absolutely skyrocket if you knew what you really had the capabilities of doing, if you really had to do it. But anyway,
Agreed,
we'll
agreed.
digress. Yep,
Well,
we'll move on from there. Yep.
At the end of the day, Chris, that paycheck constitutes trading our time for money. And so by making that trade, you would almost think that money is the more important thing, but it absolutely is not. We try to trade so little of our time or just enough of our time for enough money in compensation so that we don't have to trade all of our time for money, and that at some point into the future, we save and invest and build wealth so we no longer have to make that trade-off.
Yeah, you're right, Peter. I'll give you a perfect example is how we treat employees here at the office is, time is so very important to me. It's important to them. So, when we have a major holiday like a Labor Day, a Memorial Day, a 4th of July, a Christmas, and New Year's, I think we actually take an extra day off. It means that much to me to have my staff home with their family. They respect that. I respect their time. So, time is the essence of all of it. But like Peter has reiterated is, having that paycheck that covers those basic living expenses throughout your retirement. Think of the peace of mind that provides you that, okay, I might have to carve off a little bit of my nest egg here, and develop an income plan out of that, but that leaves me other money to have invested that, I'm not so emotionally tied to that where I might make a rash decision because, the market went down this week or the market went up this week and I missed this opportunity or got clobbered by what was to be a potential opportunity. Instead, I've got my monthly money coming in and the other money that's invested is somewhat icing on the cake, if you will. Maybe you're taking dividends here and there, that type of thing. But, to try to remove emotion from making those knee-jerk reactions, because those typically don't work very well for you.
Sure. But Chris, to reiterate, once we retire, we still need an income. Now we just don't have a paycheck. So the culmination of that financial success and ultimately not having to trade the time for money and having the confidence to do so and transition to retirement, that comes as a result of having a specific spending plan. That spending plan is what helps us to recreate the confidence that the paycheck once gave us.
Yeah, Peter, and let's look at it this way. So let's say you made $150,000 a year, either by yourself or a household, whatever. Okay, and then you go from $150,000 a year of income to Social Security for two folks that might be $50,000 or $60,000 a year. Okay, man, that's a $90,000 income gap that you just have to fill somehow. You better have a big 401k using the 4% rule to develop that type of income if you want to live off of what you were earning. Now, hopefully you paid down some debt and that type of thing, but you still think of that lifestyle adjustment that's going on psychologically from 150 coming in every week to 60,000, or not 150 coming in every year, which is basically $12,000 a month, to maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month out of Social Security between a husband and a wife. That's a heck of a haircut.
Yeah, a big time shift. Now, one of the things that can help us make that shift, Chris, is by eliminating unnecessary payments. So it used to be that we all were striving to be completely out of debt by the time we retire, not being a friend to our financial progress. But in this day and age, Chris, is that as important as it once was? I mean, let's talk about debt. And of course, we don't want to take on excessive debt or too much debt or have debt run us. But there are times and places where debt can actually be pretty useful. And in fact, it's really part of the American society because it's kind of the natural evolution in buying your first home and beginning to have the road to financial success.
Yeah, everybody, I suppose if we were going to draw the ideal retirement for everybody, it would be to be debt-free, to have a pension, to have Social Security coming in and not need very much money. That's not necessarily reality anymore. The baby boom generation isn't really as concerned as of having their house paid off because it might be financed at 2.5% right now, where their parents' generation or some of the older folks that might be listening to us today on like WLEC out of Sandusky, may have had an interest rate of 17% at one time. So again, you've got to gauge that through the demographics and of what we're dealing with here on the show. And I'm not really concerned about having the house paid off here. I would love, ideally it will eventually be paid off the way we have it financed. But most folks, if aren't paying, if the interest rates are 2.5% and you've only got 5 or 7 years left on your mortgage, should you pay it off? Your monthly payments are going more toward principal than to interest at that point in the loan anyway. Yeah. And if you said, okay, well, I'm going to pull 50 grand out of my 401, okay, that's one thing. All right, because now you're going to pay tax on 50,000. You're going to get no more growth on those dollars over time, where they only need to grow by 2.5 or 3% to equal the debt, that the interest rate you're paying on the mortgage. If you've got a substantial amount of money in the savings account, do you pull that money out that's not earning anything to pay down a debt that's costing you 3.5%, whatever the mortgage rate is? That could be a viable argument.
So you help people through the actual math of that. And I know that money at its core is math, addition and subtraction, but there's also the mental, emotional, psychological aspect of it. And people may make some decisions that ultimately don't make financial and mathematical sense. You've got to balance the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to give a shout out to my high school math teachers that might be listening, that, a lot of it's algebra. So what everybody told us we'll never need, algebra is life. So shout out to my math teachers.
Well, I remember back in my childhood where my mom would try to write the check to pay the bill and have it arrive at whatever place the day before the bill was due, to try to keep the money in the account for as long as possible. And it seemed like, a lot of extra work, but her checking account was earning 12, 13% back then. Very different scenario today, to where that money in the bank, Chris, it's not paying us a whole lot. So if we've got money sitting there earning next to nothing, we want to do something a little bit more meaningful with it.
Yeah, you're right, Peter. I had a client we had a conversation with the other day, several $100,000 just sitting in checking and savings accounts, just because, money's coming in and they're not spending it. And, earning like 0.2% of an interest rate. And even the bank had told her, said, we're even talking about just stopping interest all in all right now,
Wow.
and interest payments on, I think it was savings is what they were dealing with. So we, helping them with some of those alternatives. But, remember right now, the headlines are inflation. Okay. Mm-hmm. So inflation ticking up. I mean, look at the cost of goods and services right now. Price of oil was over $60 a barrel in the mid to early part of March, from, $40 a barrel. You look at all the goods and services for home construction and all that is certainly outpacing what you're earning in your savings account. So you are actually losing your purchasing power by having too much idle cash. We always need to have that emergency fund. We're not advocating against that, but just having tons of money doing nothing for you is certainly a challenge.
Well, there's kind of two schools of thought to this one, Chris, and that is, one, there's groups that advocate for having no available credit, having a 0 credit score, but those same people probably would certainly be extended credit if they ask for it, but have the cash to plop down to buy just about anything in the world they could ever desire. There's another school of thought that says use other people's money in these low interest rate environments to capitalize and begin to create wealth for yourself. I think that's a case-by-case basis. Do you help people decide which is the right or correct approach for them?
Correct. Yep. And, it's never a right or a wrong answer, folks. If I've got an aggressive and type of investor client that we're working with, and they're making a fair rate of return, why would they want to take money out of those accounts and pay down a mortgage that's costing them 2.5% if they're averaging 7%? That's a 4.5% net gain to them, by not paying that mortgage off.
Well, yeah, Chris, debt is a part of building that wealth really for all of us. If you actually think about it, that interest rate that the bank is paying us, that is the debt, the servicing of the debt to us. When we make a deposit in a checking or savings account, or the more conservative side of the traditional investment allocation portfolio, bonds. That is where we have taken our capital and loaned it to an institution or loaned it to an entity or organization, and the interest rate the banks are paying is the servicing fee on the debt that they have to us, or the yield from the bonds is the debt that they have to us. So for many of us, truly building that financial portfolio and that value, debt has been a part of it. It's what side of the debt are we on? Is the debt working against us or working for us? And so we've just got to figure through that. However, Chris, there's another piece of debt, the national debt, that has a lot of investors worried. And you sort of segued to inflation. Are these two things linked at all?
Yeah, they certainly are, because it's there's so much money that the federal government has printed, that there's so much money available that it's allowing the companies, that manufacture these goods to raise those prices. There's so many people wanting to buy or make purchases. Go try to find a pickup truck right now, for example. You're not seeing commercials on that's talking about huge discounts on anything. Look at real estate, especially in that Florida market, probably Arizona as well, where they have decent climates. Texas might be an example here after their energy issue they had there. But the Florida housing market's up 20-25% by and large. I mean, that's inflation, folks, and we have a lot of snowbirds down there, so I pay quite a bit of attention to that. But also, the energy markets, oil is starting to rise again. As we come out of this pandemic, there's a lot of pent up demand. That is good. That if I was selling goods, that means I don't have to discount them. I can raise the price because there's a lot of people with a lot of money that are willing to pay more for them. That's inflation.
Well, taking a visit to usdebtclock.org, Chris, is a very scary realization. It's pretty startling when it breaks down the numbers of what the U.S. national debt is, up over 27 trillion, quickly closing in on 28 trillion. The debt per U.S. citizen, when you include unfunded entitlements like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, is up over $450,000 per citizen. This equates to inflation, yes, but also taxation. And we talked about this a little bit last week, but there's three different buckets of money, of where we can put our money. And when you talk about debt and credit and then creating income, which bucket our money goes into is very important.
Right. And we talked about this on a previous show here this month, was having, we have money in three different buckets: a taxable bucket, a tax deferred bucket, and typically a tax-free bucket. So the taxable bucket would be where your income is coming in from, could be pensions, wages, Social Security, rent, that type of thing. Your tax deferred bucket is typically your 401ks, your IRAs, and actually could be Roth IRAs. They are tax deferred as well. You don't pay any tax until you pull money out of these accounts. And depending which type of, if we're going to put the tax deferred bucket in the middle, depending upon which account you draw out of, an IRA or a Roth IRA, it goes into the left bucket, which would be taxable, or the right bucket, which is tax-free, so to speak. And, most people listening today, money's in taxable, tax deferred accounts that are going to be taxable when you take them out at whatever tax rate somebody else decides in the future.
So Chris, and here's kind of my point is, you mentioned, and we talked about being debt-free when we retire. I think a lot of folks are, rightfully so, very proud of themselves to be debt-free when they retire. The home is paid off, possibly, no vehicle debts or medical bills or student loans. The kids are up and out of the house. So putting themselves in as comfortable a situation as possible. But then we look at those retirement accounts and it's 100% tax deferred. Is that not a debt to the IRS? We're looking at it as a positive balance. We've got X number of dollars in our 401k, in our IRA, but included in that balance is actually a debt that's growing interest to the IRS.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And remember, we don't know what the tax rate's going to be when it comes time to pull those dollars out. And, I keep very little money in my own IRA account. I want it, I know the tax rates are cheaper now. I want them to be as close to zero as I can when I retire. So why doesn't that make sense for other people that are out there listening today is beyond me sometimes, but it's hard to change a paradigm shift. Way back when they said, put money into IRA accounts because when you retire, you'll be in a lower income tax bracket. Okay. Well, here we are with lower income tax brackets. Why are younger folks still putting money into what their mom and dad did when tax rates were much higher? So we're starting to see some of that generational shift. And you and I know, Peter, I've been at the forefront of this. But if you think about, tie this back into that U.S. debt clock, which is a website you don't want to look at before you go to bed at night. It'll haunt you. You think of it. At some point, the interest rates are so low right now, but at some point, the ability for the government to pay that money back gets in questioned, and the people that are buying that debt, want more return for their risk. It's a risk reward scenario. And if you look back in high inflation years of, back in, let's call it the Jimmy Carter days, to be fair, that's where a lot of that was for folks, not to be political.
That's where we remember the highest inflation.
Correct. Yeah. Peter and I remember some pretty lean Christmases. We were running what we did wrong as kids, but 16, 18% interest rates on 10-year US government bonds that are right now paying less than 2, So where are they going from in the future? They're going to stay at 2 or work their way closer to an average of 5 or 6%. That's a huge amount of money from a debt standpoint.
And again, depending on what side of the equation that you are on, this is going to be helpful or harmful to your long-term situation. Chris, as we look at these low interest rate environments, certainly that has been problematic for savers and investors looking to get a reasonable rate of return without taking too much risk.
Absolutely, Peter. And, as we, are different types of investors out there, we have a lot of folks that are listening today that, most of their money might be active income. They're still working, so they got a paycheck coming in. The only thing that they can do to lower that income is to contribute money into an IRA or a 401k. And we're not saying abandon that strategy by any stretch. Many of you get a match as well. So heck, that's free money. Some of you may even actually have some investment income, which could be rental properties, for example, and you get some depreciation. There's some nice accounting tools that you can use there to make that a pretty tax-friendly piece to help offset that rental income that comes in. And then, passive income could also be coming from, I've got a lot of money in stocks. I got a whole basket of stocks and investments outside of my IRA account that I get interest from bonds. I get dividends from stocks. Every once in a while, I'll buy and sell some things. So I'm spinning off some taxes on money that I'm not spending. And, that's just the law of taxation. It's hard to avoid it, but it doesn't mean that you can't manage it. And, we did that show previously here where we talked a lot about the tax management strategies. So Roth IRA conversions, cash value life insurance, Roth IRA contributions, Roth 401k contributions, just helping to complement the overall strategy and then developing that steady income for your retirement to cover the basic needs, remove that emotion from the investing side of things that we know can drive everybody crazy, Peter and I included at times.
Well, Chris, I'm glad you bring up the conversation of the different types of income, because there really are 3 different types. And most of us, I would say all of us, really understand the first one, which is earned income, where we go out and we earn that paycheck, but it requires you to trade your time for money. We talked a little bit about that last week, but working as an hourly employee or a salaried employee, working as a consultant, going out and actively earning new income. That is where we begin our financial progress. That is actually the highest taxed income as well. The next is capital gains, or investment income. It's earned without actively working, a little bit more favorable tax rates, but it does take us to save money and put money away and build money up for it to work. And then that passive income, that is the most tax favorable. It doesn't take the work, but it takes capital in order to generate that. And that's an area where a lot of people don't actually get. Most retirees are trying to build up, the 500,000, the $1 million, whatever it takes to have that capital gains or have that retirement income. The ultra wealthy, they don't try to save as much as they can in some account. They put their money to work. They send it out there as quick as they can, because they know when they put that money to work, when they spend it, it's going to create little baby money and come back to them. That's the passive income. It's a very different mindset. And in fact, it's more tax favorable. That's where a lot of people, I think, have the gripe with the wealthy, is that why are they paying lower tax rates than I am with my earned income?
Yeah, a good analogy. Our buddy Dave Gaylor said to me one time, he said, well, I'd rather save $1 million and then use the earnings off that $1 million versus, take the money right out of my pocket and buy what I want, a car or something like that. Said, I can take the earnings off of the money, just like Peter said. That's the mindset of someone who, has the ability to generate some significant income, to get that income working for them and then pull off of those dollars after they've done the work to, do some of the discretionary work for themselves.
It's funny though, how each category, as you put your money more to work for you, becomes more tax favorable. You actually get to keep more of it as your money does more of the work.
Yeah, no question about it. It's, we develop a lot of different income strategies for folks, depending on where that money is at. Like Peter said, the non-IRA type money, non-qualified money, we would call that, the capital gains rate's very favorable right now. So if you're creating some dividend income, the tax rate on dividend income could be 0 until you're in the 22% income tax bracket. So that's the difference between capital gains and ordinary income. Ordinary income dictates the capital gains rate for you.
And even when you get there, Chris, the capital gains only 15%. So still a more favorable rate than brand new income.
Correct. Yeah. I'd rather pay 15% than 22, on the same dividend, for example.
So Chris, is this the goal of saving and investing and accumulating money and then formulating the investment plan and the spending plan to identify where we can get the most work out of our money at the most favorable tax rate?
Yeah, it's absolutely, the paradigm that we try to instill into our clients is, look, let's generate, do we want growth or do we want income? And that's a whole different mindset and a different way of designing a portfolio. Income could be dividends, where growth is, all right, I need Tesla stock to increase in price, for example.
Well, debt, credit, budgeting, having that spending plan, income. These are the factors. These are the major factors in building our personal financial structure, and they have impacts and implications on our future financial situation, on our confidence. They're oftentimes, these things are outside of our personal control, but I think, Chris, planning is about controlling as much as we can, about identifying what we can't control and then putting protections in place to protect and insulate ourselves against those uncontrollable items.
Yep. Good summary there, Peter. And again, the happiest retirees are those that have that lifetime income generating to cover those basic needs, and then having the discussion on, all right, what do we do with investments if I don't need them to generate income for me? Can I actually be more aggressive and let them grow dollars for me? Or can I, give some money to my kids and grandkids? Those things that bring real value to your life.
Well, on the program today, we discussed a number of different and important factors. But the big offer, ladies and gentlemen, as always, is that Chris Mcintire and the team there at Mcintire Retirement Services, they are here to provide a resource and to provide you with the opportunity to get a plan put together. If you would like to get that game plan for retirement, specifically if you'd like to learn how to retire, when you can retire, how much you need to retire, how to put your money to work for you, how to pay as little in tax as possible. That is what the game plan for retirement is all about. That is what Chris Mcintire offers to put together with you and for you, and so that you can understand how to be more efficient with your dollars. Pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. At Mcintire Retirement Services, they help make savers and investors better determine their outcome and make those goals reality through that planning process and understanding and controlling these factors that we talked about today. So again, click the link around the video or give a call to take Chris up on the offer for that complimentary planning review to get your game plan for retirement in your hands. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Chris, as always, shedding light on some important topics, and we appreciate your insight and guidance.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be with everybody today. Stay safe out there, folks.
Visit McIntyreRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris Mcintire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Indexed or fixed annuities are not designed for short-term investments and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract.